Members of Ambedkar College for this webinar. Let's go with the introduction with the speaker. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's webinar, Shanti Kumar Garu. Shanti brings with her close to 3 decades of corporate experience in immigration and international travel. Major stints were with Deloitte, Pragmos Immigration Services, Satyam Computers, Eastwell and of Tech Mahindra, Delta Airlines and Commerce Store. She worked extensively with US and global embassies and consulates, immigration law firms and Indian government departments. Her focus shifted to teaching in 2013 when she sought to make international travel a part of curriculum for MBA and UG students. Focus also increased on education of students on the essentiality of basic soft skills in life and in career, which now has no time to teach a specialty or education and home environment, which are also burdened otherwise. Shanti has been a soft skill trainer in St. Francis College for Women, St. Anne's College for Women, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Institution. She is an IATA certified and also an accredited administrator of MBTI. She holds an MA in social work from Delhi University and BSc from Usmania University. Welcome you, ma'am, for today's webinar, and I would like Shanti, ma'am, to take over the session.
Thank you, Marisa, for the introduction. Very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be associated with Ambedkar College for all the extra things that they do for their students. And I'm a part of that extra part of it, where they felt that soft skills for students is very, very important, and they approached me to take classes for them, and that's what I've been doing for the last 1 year. And I think it's only colleges staff who care, not even staff, the management who cares for the students will go on this path of helping the students to become, to enhance their skills and become better at their job. So thank you, Dr. Ambedkar College and its management. I truly appreciate, and also appreciate you for this opportunity of being on this webinar, conducting this webinar. Okay. So before I start off full-fledged, I just want to tell you all about what this whole webinar is about and the questions that you would like to note down at the end of this session so that we can have a more interactive question-answer session. So good morning to you all. I hope you're all well, safe, families, everyone. I think this is a crisis time, something that we have not seen during our life till now, and hopefully the next generation will not have to see it either. How we manage the situation is entirely up to us, not to the government, not to anyone else. So that's what we are going to talk about right now. May I have the next slide, please? So, Dr. Das, Ravindra, the Reserve Bank of India governor, said the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, is perhaps the biggest test of robustness and resilience of our economy and the financial system. And to this, I add health also to the statement. Yeah, financials is fine, economy is fine, but if there is no health, then I think we are going to be in huge trouble. So health is one of the most important features that we are going to talk about. And there is no doubt that Indians are a lot more resilient. We just get up, we walk, we just do what we need to do. And we have done so far, whether it's floods, whether it's dengue, whether it's strikes, whether it's war, we have done that before and came out well and recovered. Unfortunately, with this part, with this COVID, by the time we get up and pick ourselves up, we would have already infected 10 other people. So the infection spreads so fast that we have to be extremely careful each moment of our time rather than waiting for ourselves to pick up. So this is my thought, and I know Mr. Narayan Murthy of Infosys also said this some time back, and I am paraphrasing his words. Indian society is not a community-based society. It is highly self-focused, and as long as my work is done, I do not care about others' inconvenience. So if you see a lot of households, if you see a lot of people, whether in the past or today, we clean our house every day, we clean our clothes every day, we clean ourselves every day. But what we dump outside is something that we are not bothered about. Our children eat a banana and throw the peel outside. This HEP IIT gentleman who I know got into his Mercedes car but dropped his cigarette packet on the road. And these are people who are supposed to be intelligent. These are people who have been taught right from parents to students, to college, to school, college and everywhere, that this is not what we do. Yet, they end up doing just these basic things, which we should not be doing it. So I asked this gentleman from IIT, why do you do it, Balbir? You know, why do you throw these things in the floor and on the street and stuff like that? And you know what his response was? He said, while in Rome, do as the Romans do. And I said, you behave better in Rome. How come you treat India so badly, which is your own country, where you're actually sitting? And they had no answer to that. So my point out here is, we are giving them certificates, we are making them literate, we are not educating them. And they are not prepared to get educated. Why does this happen? This lack of sympathy and accountability attitude is developed by parents, school, college, peers, and the law, whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. By not setting the right example, we teach our children, our people, the wrong things. The other day, I've seen a man going on a motorcycle with his wife, 4 children, wife on the phone, and taking the wrong turn without a helmet. So the father is teaching the children that it is okay not to obey the law. The mother is teaching the children that, you know what, my talking on the phone is more important than children sitting on the bike. And going on the wrong way, we are teaching the children that, you know what, let's worry about ourselves, let's not bother about anybody else. So everything that we do, we have to ask ourselves if we are setting the right example or not. Next slide, please. May I have the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So how can we be safe during this time? This entire webinar is specific to this time, as in what's happening from March 2020 till what to expect till, let's say, 2021, maybe July. Okay, so how can we be safe? We have heard umpteen number of things. We have heard, so we've seen so many ads. We have seen a lot of stuff. Always wash hands, frequently wash hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. Use alcohol-based sanitizer. Also, there were reports of what happens if you use sanitizer and go to the fire, which is also dangerous. Avoid touching your face and stuff like that. Respiratory etiquette, how do you cough, how do you sneeze? Make sure you do it into a shoulder so that it doesn't fall on anybody else. Throw the tissues. So this is something that we have all been drilled with, yet I'm sad to say that a lot of people do not follow it. And they do not follow it because, not because they do not know, but what will happen to us? Nothing will happen to us. Things happen only to the outside people. Things don't happen to us. Things don't happen to our family. That is our trust in the world, in the nature, in the viruses, in God. But there is a saying in Telugu which says that, you know, yes, we do trust God, but if you keep a lit lamp in wind and say God protected from dying out, obviously it's not going to happen. God says you have to take first and then I will help you. But our people don't believe that will happen. So what happens here and what we should not be doing is being in close contact with people who are sick. Go out and meet people if you are sick. Okay? Now the third one, which is happening so rampantly, attend crowds, parties, marriages, funerals, shopping, restaurant. Are these necessary? Will the marriage not happen without you? Will the party not happen without you? Will the funeral not happen if you're not standing there and crying? Does it matter if you don't eat in a restaurant? I think these are the questions that we need to ask ourselves and make sure that we make the right decision of not attending this to keep ourselves safe, our families safe, and others safe. We have read so many reports where people have gone to shadis, the bridegroom died, then 100 people went to his funeral and then they got infected. It's a chain reaction that we do not comprehend today, but we need to. And we need to inform the students, inform the strangers, inform everybody who we see who are not following that they need to be careful. They need to do this, this, this. So the risk factor, the community spread that I just talked about, it's not just you who will get sick. It's the people you live with, work with, deal with, who are also likely to get infected. And once the infection happens, it's hard and expensive to get your health and life back, if at all it comes. In one of the apartments where I used to live, and I still get messages about that, there was this gentleman who was identified COVID positive, and then his family members, 5 of them, he got admitted to the hospital. Within a day, he died. Do I need to tell you this now? Yes, because we have to realize how difficult, how dangerous the situation is. Next slide, please. So what is our responsibility? To take precautions ourselves, to correct others, those who do not adhere to these norms, immaterial of age, gender, and hierarchy. Whether it's kids, parents, grandparents, we have to tell them you need to do this. So if they're not wearing a mask, if they're going to a party, if they keep going around hugging people, if they're standing at a tea stall drinking teas too close to each other without wearing masks, we have to correct them. We are a part of this world, and so protection too is a part of our responsibility. Message to the students is taking care is not just the responsibility of the government or the police. It is our responsibility too. Our life, our community, our India, our responsibility. The government is just a number of people. The police are just a number of people. How can they even control the 1 point whatever billion people that are there in India? And why should they? Whereas our responsibility is the question that we have to ask ourselves repeatedly to ensure that we do not spread or let others spread this infection. Next slide, please. So COVID and changes in our lives. It's changed our life. Now, we've never sat in our homes for so long, getting on each other's nerves. And the next few years are also going to be slow in pickup because everything came to a standstill. It's not like 2008 where only the financial district came to a standstill. It is now everything has come to a standstill. And so we have to ask our questions before we start doing something. Where has it changed? What is to be done now? Why do we need to do it? Who has to do it? When does it have to be done? How does it have to be done? So in my theory, I call these the W questions. Once we ask these questions, slowly the answers will emerge as to what we should be doing or what is the answer to those questions. We'll get multiple answers. We'll have to choose the right answer depending on the context. Now, at this point, the area of focus for this webinar is going to be on education, employment, financials, and mental health. These are the 4 things that are going to get affected immediately or already affected. And I think we should have a look at this and see how we can control the situation and take care of ourselves. Education has been affected so much. Classes are gone, students are not going to classes, syllabus has to be done, exams postponed, the public exams of NEET and whatever entrance exams, they're all postponed, children are losing morale. So one of the articles in India Today Insight, next slide please. So one of the articles of India Today Insight of July 2020, this is what they said about online teaching. Both students and exhausted teachers. Both students and exhausted teachers. And I hear this because behind our house in Tarnaka, we have teachers trying to teach students online. And it's a very, very difficult task to control the students, to get their attention, to keep their attention enough to go through that whole class. So there's a lot of pressure on the teachers, not only to complete the curriculum, but also to deal with the students. And that is the easy part. Now comes the difficult part, the teachers behind, the parents behind. And if anyone is confusing online teaching with digital education, there is no comparison at all. Because digital education is a highly technological oriented for a lot of academic activities, right from admissions to examinations. Online teaching we are doing only because of the constraint. It is an emergency measure to make sure the students don't miss out on their academic year. Having said that, digital education is the future of India, but it needs a lot of change in the mindsets of teachers, students and parents, education administrator and regulators, which means the politicians, the boards, the money givers. And as far as hardware, technology and internet is concerned, we are not there yet. We still have problems with internet, we still have problems with electricity in our homes, the bandwidth and the affordability of these things for millions of students to be able to get decent education. Next slide, please. So what is the current situation in education? How is it affecting the students and how is it affecting the teachers? Let's talk about the teachers. This was an emergency, right? So the training for students has been limited, or for the teachers has been limited, whether it's in schools or in colleges. So they had to make up their own, they had to do a lot of self-studying on how to start online teaching. The schoolwork has increased because they have to do their work on hard copies and then translate it to the screen and presentations. There's more monitoring of students because now they can't see all the students who should be in the class, so they have to kind of keep remembering, and so there is a lot of pressure. Control over time. Because they have to monitor the lot of students and because they're not in a classroom setting, the monitor is more, so the time to actually teach becomes less. Police monitoring by parents, not only of the children, but also of teachers. This is hard because now the teachers have to concentrate not only on students, but also on how the parents are thinking about the teaching. And if at home, the housework remains. So they have to cope with their housework. They have to cope with their own children who were earlier going to their own schools. And they were in different areas. The teachers were in their area, their children were in their own areas. But now everyone is at home. So the teachers have to take care of other students. The teachers have to take care of their own students. The last point on this slide, dealing with spouse and other family members during classes. It is a fact that when women are teaching or women are working from home, it doesn't sit well with a lot of people at home. Because they think it's not serious enough. When a man is doing the same thing, oh, he's working. If a woman is doing the same thing, they think she's doing it at the cost of the housework, at the cost of family members. I don't know if that mindset is going to change, but we have to deal with it. And it's not easy. We understand that. Now, how does it affect the students? Lack of infrastructure, not everybody will have a smartphone, laptop, internet, and study space. So they'll be living in small spaces. Accessibility to these hardware, software is not available, and that's a reality. It's not affordable. They tend to become less disciplined. We know how they are in classes, so we can imagine how they can be at home. They tend to be more casual. Fake presence. I understand this is a very common phenomena. Parental monitoring. Even students won't like their parents to monitor what's happening out there. And then financials. Payment of fees out there, payment of infrastructure fees. All this is going to become a burden on the parents. So these are some things that we have to keep in mind when we are actually going to talk about the financials. Next slide, please. What is the role of a teacher? Teacher, professor, I'm all clubbing it under a teacher because we are not just teaching the subject, but we are going to become something more to the students. Okay? I know for a fact that teachers have a tremendous impact on students. Their opinions matter more to students than of their own parents. Teachers may not recognize this or give enough value to that because they are lost in their own huge world. We don't have a choice. We have to recognize that teachers are guides to help them navigate through the study process, help them set up realistic expectations. I'm not saying give a lecture on realistic expectations, but as we go through our class, we have to kind of let them know the truths that are there out in the world. Teachers also become motivators. It is easy to become low when things are not going well at family, at classes, numbers of this thing. So teachers have to become a motivator. They have to become a role model. They have to become a role model. We cannot say one thing and do another thing. So the students will get confused as to what are they supposed to do. Listen to what we have said or follow what you have done. So being the right role model is very important. So if we are smoking, how do we tell our students don't smoke? If we are belittling other teachers or other students, how will their students gain respect for us? So we have to be very, very careful about what we are telling them, what we are showing them with our actions, our body language, our facial expressions. It's a very, very critical factor for the students. Effective communicator. Now, communication has played havoc with a lot of people's life, whether in personal life or whether in students' life or whether within the management. Communication has to be very, very clear. It is the key to transformation of a student and a relationship. A positive reinforcement of strengths of the student and feedback on the weakness increases the positive morale of the students. So we have to appreciate their strengths. If we keep telling them to focus and improve on their and make the weaknesses become strengths, it's not going to happen. Weakness will always be a weakness, but strengths can be enhanced because we are already at a certain level. It's easier to go up from there. So let's focus on the strengths of the students and help them by giving feedback, by supporting them in improving on their weaknesses, by lessening their weaknesses. If weakness can become a strength, that's fantastic news. It may happen, but the percentage of that is less. But if we can move from, let's say, weakness is at A and we can move to at least C, that will be great. From 0 to 1 or 2, that will be a great motivator for the students. And that's where we have to help them. It's easier to bring them down, easier to bring their morale down, but it's very, very important that we keep their morale. And we as teachers can contribute a lot by being good communicators. Now, when students feel that teachers cares about them, they're more open to receiving critical feedback. It's very important for them to get this message through words, body language, and facial expressions. If the words we say are contradicted by our body language and facial expressions, they know the truth. So, for being an effective communicator and a role model, we will have to take care of what we are saying, not just the words, but also of our body language and facial expressions. A co-learner. So we have done our bit in our lifetime. We have taught students, we have worked in corporates, we have come now. But I think the art of listening is something that we are yet to learn. Whether it is to parents, whether it is to children, whether it is to our partners, our spouses, and our own children, we think what we have said is correct. Maybe it is. Maybe it was in our situation. But I think we have to give this opportunity to the students, to our own children, to our spouses, to our family members, for them to say what they want to say, what they feel should be heard. Let's hear them. If we don't hear, they'll go and do precisely what they feel like doing. It's important for a teacher to listen to what the students are saying and not saying. And I think we have to react to that situation. We have to not react, but we have to prepare for that situation. We have to help them through that situation. Is it easy? With the amount of work that you have, especially I'm a freelance teacher, so it's easy for me to say, but for full-time teachers, whether in schools or colleges, there's so much academic work that bogs you down. It's not even funny. So taking care of teaching, taking care of the admin work, taking care of the mental health of your students, and coping with your own family, you are torn into multiple areas, but we've all been very resilient. Some point a few mindset changes have to be made. It's a gradual process, but it's important that we do these changes so that we are able to develop our students. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So it needs a change of mindset. Working life is needed here. Students need to now become more and more self-disciplined, and we are talking about the responsibility of students and parents. So far, we talked about the responsibility of teachers. But teachers are not alone. Just by teaching, we are not going to produce better students. They have their own responsibility, and we have to make these people accountable for their own well-being. That includes students and parents. Students have to become more self-disciplined, focused, responsible for their own learning and actions. Self-reliant in learning, not spoon-feeding, not giving them too many notes, so that they can do their own homework and come back, be more involved in community's well-being. As I said right in the beginning, we are not a community-oriented society. We need to make them more community-oriented society. We need to make them care for the society, our environment, so that it becomes a better place. Coming to parents, they have to become more tech savvy. They have to manage multiple areas. They have to learn to listen to what they are saying and not just enforce their opinions on them. Juggle between work, monitoring students online, socializing, and managing home front. Next one, please. Our collective responsibility, we, all of us, parents, teachers, staff, peers, neighbors, colleagues, and community members have a collective responsibility to shape the youth of India. We have a responsibility to correct, develop students into mature and responsible individuals and citizens of India. By being calm and objective, shouting at them is not going to help. So every time we want to shout, it's very important to pull ourselves back and lower our voices. That actually helps in reality. Give them a chance to talk and feel heard by giving them responsibilities, guiding them, and ensuring they complete their work by being accountable, by not shouting at them or humiliating them in public. If we need to get angry with them, we call them aside and we talk to them. We should not shout and humiliate them. This will only bring their morale down. We should also make our education system most effective by preparing the students to be more independent yet collaborative. Our education system has been focused on individual enhancement. Life is not about individuals living together. Life is all about, career is all about collaboration, working in teams. So we have to make them more collaborative, but we also have to make them learn to think independently. They have to be self-disciplined and self-driven. They have to be self-driven instead of feeding them notes, feeding them the questions, and producing robots. We have to prepare them to enter the digital learning world instead of the current rote and reproduce system. Next slide, please. So let's come to the jobs part of it. What's happening on the jobs front? When COVID-19 strikes, the long-term impacts takes years to catch up. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some statistics on job loss. Statistics, I have realized, it's hard on your mind. They make you realize numbers have a way of affecting people. So let me give you some statistics on job loss during the nationwide lockdown. 1.3 crores people lost their jobs between the age of 20 and 24. 1.4 crores of persons lost jobs between the age of 25 and 29. Now, added to this, 1 to 1.2 crore Indian youth enter workforce every year. What is the GDP of, what is the percentage of GDP spent by India on education? 3%. China at 4%, USA at 6%. So we're less than half of the US. And we want to produce quality students, we want to produce the best of minds. How do we do that? So what's happening now? There is a massive gap between the persons who are studying in not so great colleges or schools and the persons who are studying in elite schools and colleges. That gap is very difficult to cover. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. What's to be done now? The government has to increase its expenditure to enhance the standard of education. Will it happen? I don't know. Can we do something about it? Again, unless we collaborate, get together, force the government, may not happen. Should we do it? Absolutely. Will we do it? I don't know. Why don't we do it? Because the motivation is less. So we come back to self-motivation. What is the second thing we need to do? Maybe start concentrating less on just the regular BSc, BA courses and ramp up skills training and vocational training institute. BSc or BA just by that will not get us anywhere. To go higher, we need money, we need infrastructure, we need seats. We need better colleges. What is needed in India right now is a lot more vocational trained institutes and students. And that is what we need to start looking at in this period. The irony of employment status in India, employment for youth, which is a huge struggle for India because the company says they don't have the skills that they need. So to get the right skilled people, that is a struggle for the corporations, organizations, and actually educational institutions too. So this is the irony. We have the people, no skills. We need the people, no skills. So what is the common factor? The no skills becomes the common factor. So the skills is what we need to address right now. Next slide, please. What is urgently needed? Paradigm shift in education. Universities and schools should emphasize and develop these skills. Critical thinking, people management, very essential. Half our failures are because people management skill is a very low skill within most of us. Why do you think some people are able to get things done and some people are not able to get things done? People management. I had a brother-in-law who would remember every person's name and would address that person by name. That person would feel so happy that every time he entered that place, he would get the best of service. Now imagine the person who is saying, I'm sorry, I'm not able to remember your name. What kind of service will that person get? Obviously, not the same. Third thing, communication and English language. Accept it or not, English has become our medium of language now. Because we have so many languages in this country, it is difficult to come to a common language. So English is a very necessary part of communication, and communication is a very important part of growth. With that not happening, jobs are very, very difficult to get. Problem solving. Critical thinking and problem solving, let's club it together and see why it is important. How do we critically think from a problem from all aspects, come to a decision and solve it? But this is what the organization is looking for. Have we prepared our students for that? No, we do not allow our students to think. Because it's time-taking and more effort, and we have no time for them. We have no time to prepare them for this world. We have time only to prepare them for the exams, and that's a harsh reality, unfortunately. From now onwards, we have to start thinking about preparing them for the world, while giving them knowledge, but while also equipping with these 5 skills. Emotional quotient goes a long way in making an adult mature. Why do we say they are behaving so childishly? And I'm not even talking about students. I'm talking about adults. And we are making this comment so childish, so petty. Why do they think like that? Why are they so small-minded? That's because of the emotional quotient. They are aware only of their feelings, their hurt, their mind, their anger. They are not aware of the impact that they have on other people. They're not able to understand the other people. They're not able to relate or communicate with the other people. Emotional quotient is all about managing self, recognizing self, managing self, recognizing others, and managing others. It has to be taught. It has to be learned. Just teaching is not enough. I also should be prepared as a student or as a human being to learn that, to be conscious, to apply it. Unless that happens, you cannot grow into a mature adult. Job seekers must also reskill and upskill themselves to get multiple new jobs. Our current skills are not enough for us to get rehired. Let's say I'm in a job today. Today, my skills is enough. But tomorrow, when I don't have a job and I apply for a job, they're going to ask me if I have more skills than I had yesterday. How am I going to do that? By learning, by attending more classes, by going through different jobs. We need to reskill and upskill ourselves. Otherwise, getting newer jobs are going to become more difficult. Next slide, please. Preparation for jobs. What jobs will grow? Online delivery. And you know what we are talking about, whether the Amazons or the Zomatos or whatever. Okay. IT, BPOs, ITES, FMCG, fast moving consumer goods, and accounting. They should be hiring. Mental health care. The psychologists and the counselors, their numbers are going up. Infrastructure development will happen, but it's going to take time. What jobs are gone? Hospitality jobs, travel agents, airlines, hotels, car rentals. So anybody thinking of jobs in that area, at least for the next 2 years, jobs are going to be difficult. Automotive sales have been hit. So obviously hiring is going to be little. Manufacturing will take at least another 6 to 8 months time to pick up. So if students are going to go into this area, then they will have to give time for their jobs to come. Traditional courses may not help. The MBAs and the like, quite a few business schools, big business schools have deferred hikes, bonus promotions, campus recruitment offers have been revoked or delayed. Now, teachers have to help students and parents to change their mindset till we are over this financial background. Help them understand that if they were getting a 40,000 job 6 months back, they may get maybe a 20,000 job now, but it's better to have a job at least now than wait for that 40,000 job. If they don't accept it, that's their problem, but educating them is our problem. Next slide, please. So we are now coming to the financials, and I know I'm running a little bit over time, but financials is important. So just read the center part. Some studies have found that people spend as much as 15% more per purchase when they use plastic card, credit card, instead of cash. And I think a lot of people will identify that. It's so much easier for me to spend on a credit card or on a Google Pay than when I'm actually cash and give it to them, whether it's 10 rupees or 1,000 rupees. Next slide, please. The important thing about financials to adhere to, very necessary, money should be handy. And this I'm talking about personal financials. I'm not talking about the world. I'm not talking about Indian financials. I'm not talking about anything. The only thing we have in control is our own financials and our own actions. So let's see what we can do as far as our financials are concerned. Let's keep money handy. And what do I mean by that? Ask these questions while shopping. Do I need to? Do I need this item? Do I want this item? Need is something that you cannot do without. Rice, wheat, vegetables, medicines. These are some things that you need. What do you want? Clothes, hep shoes, bags, Zomatos, pizzas. Those are wants. You can live without those, but you cannot live without rice or medicines or without wheat or without vegetables. So always ask these questions when you are buying. Do I need? Do I want? Keep a daily account of expenditure. When you write down how much you're spending, you will understand how much you're spending actually. If I go to Spencer's with a 500 rupees cash, I will probably come back with at least 100 rupees in my pocket. If I go with a credit card and go through all the aisles of the supermarket, I end up buying things that I need and definitely want and come up with a bill of at least 1,000, 1,500. And this I'm talking about on a once in 2 weeks basis. So keep a daily record of expenditure. Numbers are very, very enlightening. Conserve bank balance. Whatever you have in the bank, try not to dip into that unless absolutely necessary. Make sure you have a medical insurance for self, family, and including parents on self of your own and of your spouse. Employment. Tell the students to be prepared to be either unemployed or underemployed for 6 to 9 months, and therefore plan for financials for this 6 to 9 months. Let's say if there is no salary coming in every month, do they have a backup plan? And that's why they need to, the universal saying is keep 9 months money in liquid form in reserve. Do not touch that. Do not lend, do not borrow, especially for family and friends. It becomes a burden. It messes up your relationships. Loans. As far as loans is concerned, pay your SIPs, EMIs, and loans. Make balloon payments or foreclose if possible. Forget moratoriums. Moratoriums add additional burden to the people who have a loan. And if you need information on moratorium, you can either contact me, or there are plenty of videos which tell you how moratorium works, and those are not happy situations. Do not even think of using a credit card. Just cut it out, throw it out, use a debit card. At least you know you don't spend more than you have. Liquidation of assets. In case of an emergency, what are the things that you can sell and get money? Okay, prioritize those items. Gold, silver, identify the items that you do not want, but you can afford to sell, give away. Equity or mutual funds, what are the FDs that you can afford to break? PPF, corpus, retirement funds. Which of these do you need it? And this is, I wrote it in the priority. Most easy are the gold and silver, equity, and FDs. But check which one is convenient for you. House or property is going to take a long time. You will probably end up losing a lot of money by selling it at a time which is not convenient. So that would be the last option. The 8th point that we are talking about is the additional opportunities of work. We have time now for the next 2 months. What additional opportunities of work are there? Even if you start coming to school or college, once you go back home, is there any online work that you can do? Is there any part-time work that you can do? There is no shame, there is no embarrassment. This is your life, you have to take care of it. Doesn't matter what people will talk about. Do not gamble, either with cards or in stock market. This is not the time to speculate and make your family unhappy. Final message for planning, for financials. Plan for your present life. We really do not know what the tomorrow is going to be there. So if you have not written a will, write a will. If you have not taken life insurance, take a life insurance. If you have not taken a medical insurance, take a medical insurance now. Protect self and family and preserve your money. Next slide, please. Mental health. What are the contributors to the mental health problems? Unemployment, underemployment, pay cuts, alcohol abuse and substance abuse, economic hardship, there's just no money for basic necessities, loans and debts. Obviously, if you're unemployed, underemployed or pay cut, how are you going to pay for your loans or your EMIs? Confined spaces. Now this is a huge challenge at homes. If you have a place where there are about 5 or 6 people, your parents, her parents, your children, you are working, she's working, your wife is working. How do you accommodate all these people constantly in your mind? Because everything that they do and say is going to affect them. A lot of things that you haven't seen before, habits that you have not seen before, start surfacing. The short temper, the irritation, the indifference of everyone involved starts becoming more obvious and thereby affecting you and forcing you to make a decision. At times of pressure, do not make decisions on relationships or on any other big things. That's very, very important. Because of the time, because of the proximity, we are going through a lot of pressure, but do not make big decisions at this time. Women and parents go through a lot more financial issues because they may be dependent on their spouse and children. Then there are ego issues which will always come into play and have to be tackled very, very carefully. It's not easy at all, but it has to be done. And that will only come with our mental strength. So what do we keep to help our mental strength up is something that you have to figure out on your own. Next slide, please. Help and support, what is needed, the family support physically and mentally. If you need online help, mental help, then please, you don't even have to go anywhere else. There are online professional mental health helpers, mental therapists out there. You can contact and talk to them. If you feel the stress, please talk to them. Husband, wife, parents, children, youngsters, oldsters, it does not matter. Somebody has to hear you without judging you, without bias, without ego hassles. That is what a third party will do. Build immunity and resilience. This has to be only self-motivated. Nobody else can tell you. They can tell you, but you still have to hear it and do it. Find your hidden hobbies and passions, the ones that you didn't have time for. Bring them to the fore. Focus on them. Things are available. It will help. The only thing that we can do is ensure that there is no stigma. We do not attach any stigma to the COVID cured, to the COVID patient's family, and to people going to psychotherapy. This is very, very important. When we talk at home, people judge us. Oh, he's careless, she's insulting, she's abrasive, she's arrogant, he's arrogant. But when you talk to a third party, as it happens in a psychotherapy, they don't know who you are. They don't know your family members. They have no judgment on you. They're just listening to what you are going through. and help you identify the root cause problems that is stressing you out. So by attaching a stigma to people who are going to psychotherapy, you are really not helping them. So it is in our control to help people understand that there is no need to stigmatize anyone in this world. No need to be judgmental about anyone in this world. We are not perfect. They are not perfect. Let's accept that and move on. Thank you. And if you have any questions, and I hope you do have questions, please go ahead and ask your questions. Next slide, please. I'm done out here.
Hello, ma'am. This is Dinesh from MBA College.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. I have two questions regarding this session, ma'am.
Okay.
The first question is regarding the online classes, ma'am. As of now, that most of the students are in villages and they don't have they have some problems regarding the signal issues and mobile connectivity issues.
Right.
So they will be missing over the online classes. So what can be the solution over that issue, ma'am?
At this point, unless India moves into a digital education system where the infrastructure is strong, there is very little help for the rural area. But what they can do is kind of set up a community center in the open area where there is just one system, people maintain their social distance, and that equipment and is good enough for them to get the classes. It will still be like classes, but limited people in open air, like the Shanti Niketan that we used to have in West Bengal. That's the only solution I see as of now. And educating the parents, I think helping the parents to understand why they need to be there to ensure students are there and understand, that will hopefully help. But as of today, we are very, very far from online teaching in rural areas. I'm sorry, that didn't of much help.
Yeah, ma'am. And my second question is regarding the jobs, ma'am. As per your perspective, when this situation will be under control and when will more employment will be generated in case of MNCs companies?
So MNCs companies, what I've read in the news reports, they are hiring, okay, but they're still very selective hiring. So they want to know what skills you have. They are looking at a lot of soft skills in the individuals. So communication, creativity, and critical thinking are three things, and emotional quotient. These are very, very important for them to hire that person. So I would think at least another 6 to 8 months before they are literally opening to hiring. But the students and the faculty has a responsibility to build these skills into the students. They have to make them responsible for learning these skills before they even apply.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Shanti Madam.
Good afternoon.
This is Dr. Gauri.
Hello, Dr. Gauri. How are you?
I'm fine. So it was great listening to you after a long time. And here I think Dinesh has asked the questions which are pertaining to students.
Yeah.
So as you know, he's a sincere student of yours. So here I would like to focus on something like the working woman.
Okay.
So as we all know, the challenges and responsibilities, or we can say rather than the expectations are doubled or tripled. The expectations are almost multiplied.
Yes.
First, let us take the kitchen where we start for the demands for the students the demands of my kids have increased, and the kids have nothing to do outside the world. So they want me to play. They want a friend with me. They want me to be with them. And apart from it, the regular college activities or the workforce activities. And apart from all these things, we don't have a servant or we don't have any domestic help. Still, we are managing everything. And as you said, the mental health, to some extent, we have to maintain a balance.
Yes.
So how are you managing and how can we manage it?
So, Dr. Gauri, for me, it's been a lot easier because I'm not working full time, I'm not employed. I do these freelance courses, but for women who are working full time, I think it's extremely difficult, very difficult. And unless the family support is there, it cannot happen. So I think what is required out here is setting the right expectations at the beginning. Tell them I'm available from this time to this time. I am not available because I have to be online. From this time to this time, I have to work on things that I told them online or I will tell them online for the next class. So I have a limited period. So the expectations have to be set with the family and they have to understand it. The husband has to help, the mother-in-law has to help, the father-in-law has to help. And if the children are old enough, they have to help themselves. It's not an ideal situation, but without their understanding, their help, you just have to lock yourself in a room and you have to be strong. And women are strong. I say that 100% women are very, very strong. But we have to help them to, we have to set the right expectations and give them advance notice, prepare them. Because they are also new to the situation. Did I help, Dr. Gauri?
Yes, madam. Thank you so much. Actually, the host muted me. I could not say thank you to you. Thank you.
You could not hear?
No, I got your answer, madam. I could not respond because the host muted me. Now they have unmuted me. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Thank you so much, madam.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. On behalf of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Education Institution, I would like to thank you for the day for taking out of your busy personal and professional schedule. We are really thankful for enlightening the staff on the pathways to safety during COVID. Thank you very much, madam, for the day.
Thank you so much and thanking you. I thank you for making a part of this webinar. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I could do my 2 cents for a better world. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful day, madam. Thank you very much.